Okay, so picking up where we left off, we have the original f of x is here. This is our sort of new version, so after sort of one translation, so this is f of 1/2 times x. What I'm doing here in terms of going through these translations, I sort of do it from the inside out. It's almost an order of operations type of thing, right? So I'm doing anything in the parentheses first, anything, right, this negative attached to the f is going to be next, and then this -2 is going to be our last step because it's really happening on the very, very end. I'm going to shift us down to a second set of graphs, so some new graphs. And what I'll do is I'm going to sort of rewrite this f of 1/2 x coordinates, right? So I'm just going to copy this down, and we'll do this all in a row. So x, f of 1/2 x. Should I have done this before I started the video? Who's to say? Who's to say? If I did this beforehand, maybe you would be like, but where did the numbers come from? Now you can see me writing all the numbers. Okay, so here's our setup, right? Let's see if we can get this all balanced out so we can see everything. That's close enough for now. So the next step is going to be, again, our kind of goal. We want negative f of 1/2 x minus 2. So the next step is going to be, where should I write this? This is going to be the negative version of f of 1/2 x. So I'm taking the same graph that I just had, my green graph from here, this guy, right? And I'm going to multiply all the y values by -1. So if it's a negative in front of the whole thing, it's going to multiply all the y values by -1, and it's going to flip it top to bottom. So again, we can kind of visually just sort of do that. But what I want to do is I want to do it in terms of having a table of coordinates. All right, this is going good. So let's do x. And I'll color code this. We'll do this one red. So let's do negative f of 1/2 x, right? So we've already done 1/2 times x, which somewhat counterintuitively actually doubled all of our x coordinates. It actually made the x coordinates a little bit bigger. And so what we're going to do is we're going to change the y values. We're going to multiply all the y values by -1. So I'm going to keep the x values here the same. So we'll write those again. So -4, -2, 0, 2, and 4. And what happens here is now the table of y values, right? So -2, 0, 1, 0, 1. They're all going to get multiplied by -1. So this is going to look like, right, negative times negative is positive 2, times 0 here is 0. Negative times 1 is -1, times 0 is 0, and then negative times 1 is -1. So my new coordinates that I'm going to graph are going to be coming from this table. So x is -4, the y value is positive 2, so that's -4 is here up. It's positive 2, it's shown up all right. -2, 0, that one's actually the same, but that makes sense because we were going through the x-axis at that point, so when we multiply by -1, it didn't change. Then we have 0, -1, right? So that's going to be here. Positive 2, 0 is here, and then 4, -1 is here. So what I can do then, can I get both of these? Not so much. Is I'm going to connect all these coordinates. Pardon my hand. Right, so this comes up. We're doing our sort of arches type thing, but now the whole thing is flipped around. So now the arch, right, is flipped. It used to be coming up to here, down, and then up. So everything is flipped over the top. If we compare it, right, looking at the version up here, So the original that's positive, f of 1/2 x is here. The negative version, right, we're flipping it over the axis. We end up with something like this. And you can see that from our coordinates, right? Okay, you can see all that. So negative f of 1/2 x, right? So multiplying all the y values by 1/2. So the third translation to get us to our goal, right? So negative f of 1/2 x. So we have kind of the negative is here, the 1/2 x is here. We need to do this minus 2 on the very, very end. That's going to affect the y values again. So what I'll do is I'll rewrite this table one last time. So here are my x's, right? Negative 4, negative 2, 0, 2 and 4. And then we'll do, let's do purple. So this is going to be negative f 1/2 x and then minus 2 off of the whole thing. And so what's going to happen is, right, relative to the table that we just made, keep all this information up, right? So the x values are here. These are the old y values. And so what I'm doing is I'm subtracting 2 off of all of those y values. So positive 2, if I subtract 2 off of that, is going to come down to 0. If I subtract, right, 0 and I subtract 2, that's going to get me to minus 2. Minus 1. If I subtract 2, is going to get me to minus 3. Hey, Max. Cats like math too. If I go 0 and I minus 2, that's going to get me to minus 2. And then minus 1 minus 2 is going to get me to minus 3. So my new and sort of final version of the graph, if I sort of follow all these different steps, I should again keep the same, rough shape of this curve. I'm just shifting it sort of, in this case now, down relative to the one I just had. So all these coordinates, they're all going to get shifted down 2 units. So my new value is negative 4, 0. So 1, 2, 3, 4. 0, negative 2, negative 2. Drop by 2. 0 and negative 3. Down here. Positive 2, negative 2. And then 4, negative 3 is going to be here. So it's got the same curve. Going to do this arch thing, fill this guy in best I can, kind of roughly this, and then down, and then this guy comes back up. Okay, that's pretty decent. So that's, right, 3 different translations, so doing it from a table of values, and then at the same time, right, sort of graphing them as we went, kind of 1, 2, 3 translations. Let me sort of show you guys this just in order one last time. So this again, right? Our original, we started here. These were our sort of coordinates. We're just lifting those off of the graph, right? At no point did we ever really have an actual formula for this. If we did 1/2 times x, that actually, right, divides by 1/2 all the x values, which is the same thing as multiplying by 2. So that stretches us out from the left to the right. Then, plump. Right from where we were. Negative f of 1/2 x, right? So all the y values times negative 1, so they get flipped. So this flips from the top to the bottom. And last but not least, we're subtracting 2 from all those y values, so everything drops, boom, boom, 2 units. So that's 3 translations to get us to the end here, essentially working from the inside out.